Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am LaWanna Bradford and welcome to our show here on E360 TV. I am so excited because this platform allows us to just speak to a host of authors, individuals who've been inspired by key readings. And this is where we get to lean in, hear the backside of the story, understand the what, the why, the how, and its application to us. Today, I'm excited because I have none other than a friend as well as amazing co-author Cornelia Brown. We're going to be talking about this book here, Edelweiss and Collard Greens, Blending Cultures, Sharing Faith, a Story of Unity in Diversity. And before I go into a little bit about Cornelia, I'm going to bring her to the stage and we're going to let her commercial do a little bit of introduction, and then we're going to unpackage this short but very impactful book. How's it going, Cornelia?
It is going awesome. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. I know you've been busy. You just got off the road. So thank you for taking time to join us today. And we're going to just do a deep dive into this. You've been doing a lot of advocacy work and allyship work in the lanes of diversity and inclusion. That has been your passion, your heart space. You're very vocal on so many stages. You are one of the leaders in bringing the Loving Day experience to the state of Georgia. We'll unpackage that a little bit. But today we really want to talk about this book here, Edelweiss and Collard Greens. And we'll be back in just a moment to unpackage who you are just a little bit more and what this book is all about.
In a small Bavarian village, a young woman dreamed of a life filled with connection and meaning, half a world away. A young man learned to stand tall against a world that judged him by the color of his skin. When their lives came together, two cultures, two traditions, became one story of love, faith, and resilience. In Edelweiss and Collard Greens, Blending Cultures, Sharing Faith, Cornelia Brown shares an unforgettable memoir of 45 years proving that love is more than a feeling. It is a choice. Through moments of joy, moments of challenge, and moments only possible when cultures collide, they discovered that faith can carry us through the darkest seasons, and acceptance can heal what prejudice tries to divide. From Edelweiss blossoms to collard greens simmering on the stove, this is a celebration of what happens when we open our hearts and build bridges instead of walls. Edelweiss and Collard Greens, Blending Cultures, Sharing Faith. Available now.
I love that the promo for your book. Well done. And it gives that backstory, right, of you and your husband, Bernard Brown, and just the fusion of individuals is one thing, right? When you're married and coming from the same background, it has its own challenges. But now when you're coming from two totally different worlds, cultures, backgrounds, experiences, your lenses are very different. It opens up a different perspective in how you navigate. And I'd like us to just kind of sit into today and why this book was so relevant today, because it is a memoir of sorts. It tells your story, but as you mentioned in here, there's a deeper message. You said a story of unity in diversity. And one of the things that you said, Connie, I call her Connie, even though she's Cornelia, you said we're all a shade of humanity. Some are very light and some are very dark. And some of us are shades of human in between. So I'd like to just sit there for a moment, if you don't mind, and help us to understand how that powerful quote resonates with this brilliant book that you wrote? And number two, how is this book the same or different than some of the other books that you've written?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your platform. It is an absolute honor. And I'm so excited to be connected with you and to you. And I don't take this lightly. Now, one of the things that, you and I have a lot of conversations about the colorful world that we live in. I really, as I've taken a closer look at humanity and, having married an African-American soldier, that served in the military and, being a military wife for 20 years and meeting so many different people, all the way from Europe to United States, then going over to the beautiful, I almost call it its own country. I know it's part of the United States, but Hawaii, and just meeting so many different people. And I began to really understand, even though we all look different, we are different shades and flavors of humanity, but we all have a common goal. We want to love and we want to be loved. We want unity and create unity. However, we get lost so much in the world of shade and flavors and diversity that sometimes we're not sure where we belong. And we forget we all are part of the human race. And so I love to say, and I have those discussions all the time. We all are shade in between somewhere, really. Some are very light, some are very dark, and most of us are somewhere in between. But each of us is created as an individual with different things that have touched our heart, our mind. So we are so different. That's where this came from. And then, of course, what makes Edelweiss and color greens different? Really, it is not different, but it is different. Just like my world, everything, it is that, but it's that. My personal bestseller, Black and White Makes Brown and We All Bleed Red, that really gave the detailed story of a very, very hurt young woman that lost her way, really. I totally lost my way. And it would not have been for other people that came and embraced me and began to teach me and show me, I would not have been able to make it over here. And Edelweiss and color greens comes from my husband and I do a lot of cruising. And we discovered the reason we love cruising, because if you ever been on a cruise ship, these are little islands of diversity. We were looking around, on the cruise ships, you have people from all over the world, Asians, Europeans, people from Russia, people from here. The workers all are diverse. And yes. I don't have to think so hard. What we say, who we are, and all of this, we just blend in with our colorful ways. So I wanted to write this with a sense of humor, because I love to laugh, mostly at myself. And I'm very honest in here with some of my kooky ways, but also share, let people take a deeper look at some of the things that others don't know. Don't just be angry at them, but maybe explore. Maybe they don't know. And maybe I can be the person that embraces them and teaches them and show them. Back to you.
No, I love that. And it's interesting that often authors begin to platform a central message based upon a lived experience, or there's something that they have an affinity to and they tie a voice to it. And for yours, it has been diversity and inclusion, whether it's, when Black and White Makes Brown, Edelweiss and Collard Greens, you have your children's books that all help people and children understand the world of diversity and inclusion. So this has really become a heart passion of yours. And we talked a little bit about this, and I want to see if you gave some thought to it. because you are a woman of faith and you believe as a Christian woman that God orders your steps. You also believe as a Christian woman that we have been gifted with a divine purpose and we have gifts and talents that we should use responsibly for God's glory. My question to you, and we're going to dig into your history a little bit. Knowing what you know now, had you not met Bernard when you did, and knowing where your purpose lies today, do you believe somehow you would have found your way to this point in time?
First of all, I just love how you think and where these questions are coming from, because they truly are iron sharpened iron type of questions. And you made me think about it. And I did. And I examined, okay, what do I really think? You are right. Our steps are ordered by the Lord. And I do also believe that we have choices as we are given those steps. So basically, my honest to goodness answer is I truly believe that my human message, my human assignment here in the earth is about diversity and bringing people from all nations together and doing my best to show people it's not so scary. We're going to keep this simple. But also we have choices. We have choices. We can come with an assignment to the earth, and then we can refuse to walk in that assignment. So because who I always have been as a child, curious, I've always been a storyteller. Let me tell you one quick funny story. I went to a school. I was basically raised by nuns. So everything was Catholic type of schooling. And I got really good grades. I loved school and I loved history. But one of the nuns called my mother and said, you need to come and do something with her. And she said, what did she do? And she said, she's really a very good girl, but she talks too much. She's always telling stories. She said, everything is a story. And then when we ask her to write an essence of 2 pages, her essays are 25 pages long or longer. And she said, you need to harness. But she saw something. She said, this girl has something within her, stories she wants to tell. And you made me reflect on that moment when she said that to my mother. She said, we're not going to punish her for it. However, we need to harness all of this. So again, my choice was to engage with my sense of curiosity. My choice was I will step out of my comfort zone, out of the box that maybe people attempted to put me in. And my choice was, and I believe that I always would have been, whether I met Bernard or not, step into the choices of let me see what the bigger picture of the world is and where does that come from? Where do certain mindsets come from? I believe that I would have engaged in some way, shape, or form.
And I love that. And when we reflect back, Connie, like you said, here's someone who saw something in you. It's like, okay, she writes. We ask for 2 pages, she gives us 25 pages. We ask for a short oral speech, and she's going for 5 or 6 minutes. But also, you said you were very curious. And I think when we are young, our gifts and talents are, I believe, they're very much present, right? It's where do children naturally tend to lean toward. But as we grow, sometimes our paths are stifled by parents thinking, well, you should go here versus there, or maybe punishment because we don't line up and we're not coloring inside the box like everyone else is. But you were given this gift of being able to freely express yourself. And which is definitely needed in this topic of diversity and inclusion. It requires someone who has a sense of knowing and self-awareness, ability to express without fear, but also the compassion and consideration to, as you said, build those bridges. So let's unpackage collard greens and Edelweiss and collard greens a little bit about how this book can serve to help build bridges. You look at, we're here in the United States. We are a nation very much divided, and it seems to be amplified. I mean, the racial divide and the tensions have been growing for quite some time. How can this book help to aid in creating conversations and help to bridge that divide and open people up to where they're willing to lean in and understand people in situations that are different?
Again, I love the way you phrase your questions, that it takes something, nowadays when we get together and we have conversations about race, very quickly it can get off kilter, and you have anger, hurt, and pain taken over, and people go to their own corners and not coming out. So as we were traveling, I was talking to my husband and said, okay, let me see where I want to begin the book. Where do I want to begin this story? And so I wanted it to first come with a sense of humor, to show people that when two people from such different places come together, some very funny moments develop. And sometimes we forget to laugh. In the middle of all the trials and tribulations, there are some really comical moments. But also, I figured out how much food, how much, what we eat and how we come together in different celebrations and having conversations as we have those different events in our life, how much food, has a big part in our diversity. And so, I began with a couple of stories. Again, the Edelweiss is a very unique flower, first of all. And what I love about it, and this is what I was thinking about. First of all, the Edelweiss is a flower that grows in very difficult circumstances. It is a plant that, on rocky, on the highest mountains, ice cold, freezing ice cold, with its own little fur coat, it can make it. But also, the people that were listening to the song, and there's a song out there for those of you that ever watched The Sound of Music, there is the song Edelweiss. And it was actually a symbol of freedom and a symbol of resistance. So when they were singing that song, it ends with "Bless my homeland forever." And so it was a message that they were resisting a hierarchy that was building, during the time of war with Hitler. And that flower became the flower of resistance. Anyone that's out there that's interested in history, look at the story of the Edelweiss pirates in Europe. They wore the Edelweiss, again, as a sign of resistance against things that are against humanity, that are, everything that Hitler was standing for, the Edelweiss was in resistance of. And then I began to think about, this is so similar. They were singing the Edelweiss songs when in the fields, when I learned about African-American history, so many people will sing a hymn and not even realize that there was actually a song sang by the slaves as a sign where to go in the Underground Railroad. So this is how all of this began in my head, okay? And
let's pause for one second there, because this is really good. And like you said, many people don't realize that the Von Trapp family, and with The Sound of Music, that was a true story. So for those of you who love The Sound of Music or wondering what is The Sound of Music all about, Google it, take a moment to watch it. It's an amazing, award-winning musical, but also it is a true story of this family who had to flee during the Nazi occupation. And like you said, the words of the song, it sounds so sweet, almost like a lullaby. But the power, like you said, when you recognize what the flower is and how it's able to resist extreme temperatures and still grow and still thrive. And you look at the occupation and what was happening with families and being pulled apart and the distress and the arrest and the words, like you said, and I love the song because I used to sing it all the time. But Edelweiss, Edelweiss, you look happy to greet me. Blossom of snow, may you bloom and grow forever. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, bless my homeland forever. And when you really unpackage those words, it's like, even in adversity, right? We can grow where we're planted, even though the world may seem harsh or people may not understand who we are. We can still grow, we can still bloom. But we have to give ourselves permission, not look for permission from others. And you've taken liberty. You've created your own table of conversations in many, many ways. And I love what you were just saying, even with the slaves, the songs that they were singing was, telling people like when it was safe to run, and it was songs of encouragement. So they were like hidden messages.
Yeah. And
your book, I believe, because I read it, is one of those hidden messages. You've got the funny stories, your lived experience with Bernard. But if we really look at it with sharpened lens, it really challenges us. Am I really as accepting and inviting of other people? Am I a person that allows someone just to be? They may not be me, and it's okay. But I'm willing to allow them space, and they're willing to allow me the space that we can coexist in this beautiful humanity, the tapestry of humanity. And with that, I want you to read, I thought it was so funny, the story of, it's called What Are Collard Greens? And if you wouldn't mind reading that chapter, it's a short chapter, and it helps remind us that there's times we're going to be in situations where we're looking and wondering, well, what is that? And we have our own interpretation, and the other side may be laughing at us, but then when we understand, we can laugh along too, because now we're no longer ignorant. We understand what it means and what to do with this thing called collard greens. Over to you.
Okay, well, first of all, I need to put my reading glasses on. So these are my sunglasses up here. Okay, the sparkly ones, and here are my reading glasses to really help me. So I just want to remind everyone, when I first came over from Germany to the United States, there was not any Google. There was no phone that I could, a cell phone where I could just pick up and call someone real quick and they would give me the information, because I didn't know anyone, So my husband, bless his military heart, we both were captured up in this colorful love, and neither one of us had a clue what to really do with one another. So Bernard's collard greens. So let me share you the well, hold on a second. Hold on. I skipped too quickly. What are collard greens? So after our delightful trip down memory lane, revisiting the story of Edelweiss and then reminiscing about our wonderful exchange student, Bernard declared with a playful glint in his eye, he was coming after me. All right, it's my turn now. I rolled my eyes. God, he is going to come at me, and already anticipating what was coming. So he said, I remember when you first came over from Bavaria. And he began, a chuckle already escaping his lips, on our very first Thanksgiving. You miserably failed at understanding what collard greens were. I know, I replied, smiling at the memory. He chuckled again and said, you, my sweet Bavarian girl, tried to cook those greens like spinach. May I add, he was just shaking his head, and I just laughed inside. But anyway, well, Bernard, I responded, my voice filled with mock indignation. I had absolutely no idea what in God's name you wanted me to do with that enormous bush of tough, leafy green stuff. You just handed it to me without any explanation. And you expected me to cook it for Thanksgiving. I had never seen a collard in my entire life. There was no Google or laptop to help me. I was completely on my own. You see, we were a young military family, and we didn't know a soul. My sweet mother-in-law, bless her heart, Carrie, came to my rescue so often and taught me so many things my husband didn't even realize. I didn't know. This happens quite often in an interracial, culture fusion type of marriage. Different traditions, different foods, different ways of life frequently leads to what I fondly call culture fusion, confusion. Okay, now back to my collard greens. I continued, my voice laced with amusement. I looked at them and thought, okay, looks a bit like some kind of oversized spinach. I just cook it like that. I was quite pleased with myself, all excited, and then I tasted my creation. Yuck, yuck. These leaves were tough, gritty, and incredibly bitter. I thought, what in the world? And he actually likes this? This vegetable is disgusting. Bernard, I said, playfully nudging him, you weren't exactly nice in your reaction when you tried it. Thank goodness, when you called Mama Carrie, she gave you a good fussing for expecting me to know how to cook them instinctively. She understood perfectly, and I must admit, she told you how to cook them and gave you her recipe. And I must admit, those collards were delicious, even though I secretly hoped they would be terrible out of spite. Yeah. So as a matter of fact, I added with a smile, the entire Thanksgiving meal that year was cooked by you with your mom's guidance. And it's become a wonderful tradition in our house. And you, Bernard, cooked the Thanksgiving meal. So the more stories I wrote in this book, the more I realize how much food influences our cultures and our traditions. And such a fundamental part of who we are and how we connect with one another. Back to you.
Thank you for reading that. And that is funny because you didn't know, right? And you don't know what you don't know. Bernard's assuming that you do know. So you take it and say, this is just an oversized spinach. And it tells me with it gritty, that means you didn't wash them really well.
I have to laugh at myself still all these years afterwards.
Oh, but with that story, how can that story kind of help individuals? Because you said you're going to begin having these conversations of diversity and inclusion. How can sharing a story that simple, but couched in a very funny moment, in your opinion, help to kind of lower the resistance that people may feel when you do bring them in the room to have very serious conversations about diversity and inclusion?
One of the things that that jumps out to me every single time, and so many multiracial families lose their support system, where, you know, not only are they going through their own struggles like we had, but they lose, you know, family members turn their back. It is so sad. I still to this day hear some families use the terminology that, no, you are disowned. If you do this, if you marry this person, we will disown you. They would. So a lot of times people do not have a support system. Well, praise God and thank God my husband did, because his mom helped him to understand. You married a foreign girl. You cannot just, she didn't grow up having an African American mama teaching her how to fix soul food or collard greens or whatever you call it. And she understood. And she interjected. A lot of times she would say to him, hold on a second here. Now it's her son. She would tell him, this is not fair to her. This is, you need to manage your expectations. You know, and then she would make him do it. She would call me afterwards and she said, girl, get on the phone. Connie, get on the phone. Do not cook the collard green for him. We're going to make him do it. And she said, let him cook it. And I love that part. So, but what that meant to me, that was a moment that went beyond Bernard and myself. It went a moment where it spilled over to my beautiful mommy-in-law. I miss her so dearly. Where she could have said, you know what? And I've heard that a lot of times, you made your bed, now lie in it. But no, she didn't say that. She said, how can I help lovingly? And how can I insert myself and help these two cuckoo birds to make it? And she became a very important part of our support system, where she would not just take his side because it was her son, but she would attempt to kind of, put herself in my shoes. And why? Because even though my father-in-law was African-American and so was she, but they both came from very different circumstances. And she was only 15 years old when she got married. And what I didn't know, she was very, very light-skinned with red hair. So she always had to deal with people thinking she was dyeing her hair, and her Irish heritage was coming through big time. And in her own way, she had to deal with the all shades and flavor confusion, even in colors. And she understood. And again, the support system began to, it brought me hope that I did have someone, an ally like you, call me sometimes, that would look at things my way and try to help me.
Yeah, I love that. We'll be right back in a moment. I'm here with guest Cornelia Connie Brown, and we're talking about her latest book, Edelweiss and Collard Greens. We are back with Cornelia Brown talking about her latest book, Edelweiss and Collard Greens, Blending Cultures, Sharing Faith, A Story of Unity and Diversity. This is about her lived experience as a Bavarian young woman who married an African-American U.S. Army soldier, coming to America and trying to figure out this world while also dealing with, and let's talk a little bit about that, when we tend to, you called it cultural fusion. how was that cultural fusion received or resisted in Bavaria?
Right now, things have changed a lot. Diversity has reached Europe in a mighty way. Again, there's so many, especially the bigger, larger cities are huge melting pots of all kinds of different cultures and skin colors and all of that. Back then, when I grew up, it was a very monoracial, environment until the Americans came to free Germany from the Nazis. Okay, and during that time, what is so interesting to me, you had African American soldiers coming over to Europe, interacting, with the European community, and it's again certain things that were taking place in the United States at that point in time, that segregation and separation was brought over by other military members, and then attempt to implement those things, and scare the local communities. Some surrendered to that, and others were like, no, we make our own decisions. But, overall, Bavaria still to this day, when you go, you have mostly the European, the Southern European type of person that, the mountain people that, dwell in Bavaria. And again, if you go into the bigger cities, then you have much more acceptance and more diversity that is there.
Right. Yeah, when you were talking about, the arrival of the Americans, my dad joined in 1948, and Heidelberg was actually his first duty station. And it's for him at that time, he was a young boy, he was age 17, which was quite interesting how God works. So he lived in a German American community called Mayview in Missouri. 250 people, predominantly white, German ancestry. And then from there, his first duty assignment happened to be Germany.
Wow.
So again, the understanding, American German culture, but then being transplanted now in Germany as an African American in a segregated army, and having to navigate, culturally like that. And so your book, again, I think just allows us, again, blending culture, sharing faith, allows us to really talk about the current cultural divide. How do we blend? How do we create understanding? And some people, I want to toss this to you, Connie, some people think if I'm blending cultures, then that means I give up who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And you still say, hey, I'm a girl from Bavaria. You haven't given up who you are, but you've become part of, I think, just your essence of being and understanding, and who you're married to and who your children are. You are, I want to say, it's like your feet are in both worlds. From a lens of understanding, no, you can never be an African American, right? In that quote unquote experience, but you can, as an ally, understand the journey your husband has, understand the journey maybe your children are facing, and also giving pride in the combined cultures of who your children and grandchildren are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, how I feel about this color thing, the white and black and all of that. If we have such a great need to identify with just one thing, we forget we have been designed as very unique creatures. We come with our own assignments, but we also have our own creativities. We have, We have so many things that are so unique to us. I mean, just think about it. The other day, I had to do my fingerprint for the bank. And oh my goodness, my military husband trying to get my Bavarian fingerprint on something. That was a story, a book all by itself. But I was thinking about how unique we are. I'm like, is that really true that every single thumbprint is different? So we all are different. I don't care if you are exactly the same color match to someone else. You are not a carbon copy. If we are all just exactly like one another, then we only need one human being. We don't need all of us. So again, I cannot feel everything that you are feeling as an African American woman and the things that you are going through. However, I feel that my responsibility is to not, if an injustice happen, not to dilute it and be ignorant to the injustice just because I want to shove it to the side and not see it. That is what I am trying to bring to the table. But I also tell a lot of African Americans point blank, every person that's born like me is not bad. Give us a chance to show us. Yes, we may be a little bit ignorant and sometimes say some really dumb stuff. However, if you give us a chance, like my mother-in-law did, and begin to teach, and yes, you may be tired of always having to be on the teaching side. However, if we begin to teach one another, because my people from Bavaria went through a lot during the war. It was not all that wonderful. They went through a tremendous amount. And they know, the Europeans know, when you allow someone else to say this is what the perfect human being should look like, and this is what the perfect human being deserves, everything perfect in their life, how dangerous that is. And that is what I am honoring my parents with, because believe it or not, because we all were dark-haired and the olive skin, there was that variation. It's wherever you go to Asia. You talk to the Asian people, they have their weird variations. And it's this constant comparison, what we look here, what we look like here instead of what we have here and what we have here.
Yes. Connie, I cannot believe we're almost out of time. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to speak directly to our audience, and then we will wrap up. We'll definitely have to have you back because I'd love to explore further this journey with this book, Edelweiss and Collard Greens, especially the conversations that you want to have around this and how people can become a part of this shift to help change the narrative. So take it away.
Well, first of all, I am so glad to be able to speak to you today. If you are like me, that you want to build bridges instead of building walls, and help us to blend cultures, sharing faith, and all of our stories, our unique stories of unity in diversity, I would love for you to reach out to me, send me an email. If you have a church and you would like to have a multicultural day, I would love to come and be your speaker and bring my stories to you. Some stories we all can laugh at, and others we can really begin to dig deeper and think about some of the things that we say and do. If you have a work environment that needs to work on their acceptance of one another, look, whether you call it diversity and inclusion, or just bringing people that are unique and different together and be unified in one message and in one assignment to be better together, how can that hurt? Let me come and speak to everyone about this. But also, if you have taken care of children, if you have a kindergarten or, daycares or different things, I love to do story time. And in story time, we share that there are many different languages all over the world. People speak with different accents, and, it is okay. That makes it fun. That makes it colorful. And we have a complete anti-bullying campaign going on with our books. Or the latest book that from my Constance the Little Angel series that talks about the need of bone marrow matches and, for children that have sickle cell anemia, or, especially the underserved child out there that does not have people coming forth and getting tested. And we just want to share how that the environment is very safe right now to help out, but that we all are here to help each other to become better human beings. So again, my name is Cornelia Brown. You can find me on my website. It's going to be listed. You can find me on, you can email me, cornelia.brown@yahoo.com. You can hop over to Facebook. You'll find me on there. And, I'm on TikTok and all these different sites. But once again, you may encounter someone that is going through something. Have them reach out to me if they are in a multicultural marriage, interracial marriage, whatever, all shades and flavors marriage, and they are not being accepted. They are struggling. I would love to speak with them and encourage them spiritually, but also to give them some really good pointers and give them some connections that they have. We also have an incredible celebration every single year at the beginning of June called Loving Day. I want to invite you to come to Georgia, to a little city called Lovejoy, Georgia. And I am going to advertise Loving Day everywhere. But let me tell you this, we should do more loving days throughout the year. I'm going to do every quarter now. I'm going to have a multicultural celebration. Again, where we all come together, where we share our stories, where we can reach out to one another instead of going into our own private corners and not speaking to one another. Look, have you ever heard of that term, iron sharpens iron? Actually, there's some awesome conversations that can happen when you bring a group of people together and just start some conversations. You may want to start getting this book and just read a story and ask them, what do you think about that? Do you have your own experiences? And watch what develops from there. Great conversations, great questions. And then let's help the people find a solution. Not just talk at people, but speak with people, and let's help them find a solution for all those issues that are coming their way. So once again, I am so honored to have spent an hour with you guys today. And if you need anything, do not hesitate to reach out to me. And again, this is the story, Edelweiss and Collard Greens, and I'd be more than happy to come and read on your Zoom or in a private event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie. We appreciate it. Again, folks, you can get your copy of Edelweiss and Collard Greens on Amazon. Follow Connie, reach out to her via email. She's provided you with all of her contact information. We also have it scrolling below. So if you are someone who wants to learn a little bit about diversity and inclusion, how you can help bridge that cultural divide, shift the narrative, and just walk in a state of love, understanding, and acceptance, Cornelia Brown is someone that you really want to get to know and become part of the movement. We don't have to develop our individual pods. We can all come together and collectively, with a unified force, change the world for a better place. Right, Connie?
Absolutely. I love that.
Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, Connie. I really appreciate you being on our platform. To our listening audience, thank you for joining us for another edition of Power of the Pen. We will see you next week. And remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Be safe, be well. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
In a small Bavarian village, a young woman dreamed of a life filled with connection and meaning, half a world away. A young man learned to stand tall against a world that judged him by the color of his skin. When their lives came together, two cultures, two traditions, became one story of love, faith, and resilience. In Edelweiss and Collard Greens, Blending Cultures, Sharing Faith, Cornelia Brown shares an unforgettable memoir of 45 years proving that love is more than a feeling. It is a choice. Through moments of joy, moments of challenge, and moments only possible when cultures collide, they discovered that faith can carry us through the darkest seasons, and acceptance can heal what prejudice tries to divide. From Edelweiss blossoms to collard greens simmering on the stove, this is a celebration of what happens when we open our hearts and build bridges instead of walls. Edelweiss and Collard Greens, Blending Cultures, Sharing Faith. Available now.
From the segregated military to modern movements for justice, this book uplifts the stories often left in the margins. With a rare blend of poetic grace and historical insight, Bradford moves beyond retelling American ideals. She reimagines them through the lived lens of those too often pushed to the margins. Black women who carried burdens and dreams, indigenous ancestors whose sacred truths still echo, immigrant allies who stood shoulder to shoulder in faith and sacrifice, and unsung patriots who, despite betrayal, still believed in the promise of America. Our Pledge of Allegiance is a love letter to resilience, a reckoning with history, and a call to rise, not with bitterness, but with clarity, conviction, and hope. It's a reminder that patriotism is not silence, it is speaking truth while holding the flag in one hand and faith in the other.